the one thing about Jack that was great is he could say anything and he never got in trouble. So,
right.
So you could just let go of that concern, you know.
Yeah. He was a master at saying anything.
Yeah.
I have a couple of stories when I was teaching, and that's a whole different thing too.
Oh God.
Oh yeah. Well, and Josh, I was listening through to that mini disc recording that you had sent me. I don't know, like last fall or something like that.
Yeah.
2003, I guess, or 2002. Yeah. Crazy, man.
I know.
And I thought it was so funny. You know, it was so great that you just let it run. Because it was all the stuff in between that was almost as good as the playing was great. It was amazing, you know, and you were just a babe in the woods, as was I.
Yes, we were young. I know, when we were young.
I mean, whatever. But you can hear at one point after he does the standard opening on
Green Dolphin.
Standard opening on Green Dolphin, and then he turns to you and you can hear him say, "Do you know Don't Get Around Much Anymore?" and see. And you were like, yeah. So it must have been like your first gig with him.
It was early on playing with him.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't know that you knew whether you knew Don't Get Around Much,
right?
He probably thought, who is this kid? He probably doesn't know anything. You know?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I was there to learn and be
you were
taught by
feeling
the
it.
master.
Where did you play with him? Where was that at?
Jack's.
That was at Jack's.
At Jack's.
The Thursday night Jack's. That was right when. That was right about the time Jack started playing Jack's again after he had been away from it.
Oh, right, right.
Because when I started playing with Jack, he wasn't doing Jack's, and I didn't even know he had. I guess he had been playing there when they first opened in like the late '80s.
Oh, okay.
He had originally had a regular thing there, and probably Diane got pissed off at him or something. You know, who knows what could cause things to go wrong.
Yeah.
But in any case, they weren't. By the time I came on, was playing with Jack, it was Chadney's that we were playing at all the time. And
right.
And with the small group, and then the old Catalinas was where I got a chance to hang with Tom Kubis, you know.
Yeah, that's where we played a lot together. Yeah.
Jack had the regular thing there, and I came in, you know, some in the shadow of For the Boys. You know, it was still the name of the movie and stuff was still sort of bobbing around, and then I kind of just started subbing and.
Yeah, that was going to be the claim to fame, I thought. You know, I think Jack thought that, you know, they had the stands and everything, that it was going to be For the Boys, and we're going to do that. And, you know, and then Jack, of course, took it a different direction, which was, you know, thank God for that.
Yeah.
You know?
So cool.
Yeah, I mean,
you guys ready to
go? Tom, you were involved in the For the Boys thing, right?
No, I was not.
How interesting. I just assumed you were.
No, I was not. And that was... I came in, you were probably on it, the very first gig where they had the stands and everything, and it was like, okay, this is, but no, the For the Boys band and everything, music was all somebody else. I have no idea.
Interesting. See how I have these twisted sentiments. Anyway, Josh, we were interrupting you as you
tried. No. This is awesome. Save it for the gig. Yeah. Let's, Dave, Tom, thanks again. This is great.
Oh gosh, yeah, guys.
And Tierney's going to join us around 5, she said.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So pop in.
Well, singer never comes in till the midway through the set anyway, right? You gotta have a couple of instrumental tunes first, and then you bring her up. So.
That's right.
Another spiel.
Yeah. That's good.
That's good.
Hey, Dave, did you play? You played that little gig up in LA with blah blah blah, our trombone player friend. Did George Segal play?
Oh,
band?
Yeah, with Conrad Janis.
Conrad, yeah, and he passed away.
That was another. Did Conrad pass away just recently?
No, George Segal did.
Oh, George. Yes,
yeah.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Death of a band.
It's funny when you start thinking about it that, you know, when you're in the Jack Sheldon sphere, there are like these weird little chapters that happen. And that was definitely one of the weirder little ones, you know.
I know, and like strange people, you know, it's like, okay, here's Barbra Streisand over here, but don't talk to her. You know, like we're playing for all these people that, you know, on our pay grade, we don't even play for.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I should have gone over to her and said, listen, I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I'd really love to do your tour in 2016. So if you could just keep me in mind, I'd appreciate it. Just, you know, remember me remember me. I know I don't have any gray hair yet, but I will. Yeah, Conrad was a weirdo, definitely.
Yeah.
And that was a strange time with Jack too. Jack was going through some strange things at that time. He did some curious things.
You wouldn't say.
Yeah. But I learned a lot on that gig. You know, it was all Dixieland.
It's all Dixieland.
Yeah. And I learned a whole lot about the forms on those tunes and the way roll-offs work and, you know, the second line snare drum thing, which I sort of knew a little bit about, but I really didn't, you know, I kind of was learning on the fly there. And you couldn't screw up too badly at Lunaria, for those of you who remember.
Oh my gosh.
Every Tuesday at Lunaria for $50.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's $1993.
Right.
Or whatever it was. No, it would have been 96, I think, something like that.
90. Wow, was it that long ago? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I still have the Beverly Hills Enlisted ties. They're still.
Yeah. Well, and Westy Westenhofer was the tuba player. Yeah. And he was great.
Oh, it's freaking out of his mind.
He passed away too, right? I mean, he was a brilliant tuba player. I think he had been out of Disneyland, right? Had he been on the?
Yeah, he'd been at Disneyland for many years, and
so that explains his mental state. But he was.
No, he was brilliant. He was.
He could walk. You know, he was one of the few guys, the first people I ever heard who could really walk a bass line on a tuba. You know.
Oh yeah.
And keep it going, but you know. And he was a goof, and he would always be featured doing this thing where he would play his hand.
It sounded like a tuba. He plays.
Yeah, he would go
like a tuba,
and he would do it, and it was this shtick thing, and it was good. I mean, like it was a super crowd pleaser, and he would do it every gig, and you could tell that Jack just thought it was really dumb, you know. And Jack, do we have children on the feed?
Not really, just me.
Okay. Well, just because if you're going to tell Jack Sheldon stories.
I would say that I'm old enough that you can do that with me.
Okay, I'm not going to. Well, I don't know who's going to see this, you know, but in any case.
There is an issue.
Westy was over there doing his featured thing, and I'm just like keeping some time, and Jack would always be sitting on the stool right next to my hi-hat for that gig. And he turned to me and he goes, "Yeah, you know what? In order to make it in this business, you got to have a shtick like this. That's the only way to get people's attention." He said, like, maybe you should learn how to play the snare drum with your dick or something.
Yeah.
And I said, "All right, I'll keep that in mind."
Maybe next gig. I got a little bit.
Oh, I love this.
Well,
Dave, awesome.
Yeah,
this is great.
That's a good opener right there. Oh my God.
The opener. That's the opener.
Set the mood.
Oh my gosh.
So
all right.
That's so funny though. All these years, Tom, I thought that you had been involved with the For the Boys, movie, and that had been like an early thing for you with Jack. But
no, that was a little bit before I kind of settled in doing stuff for Jack, and plus it was, you know, that was the show that they had a machine behind that. That was, you know, whoever that was their thing. I don't even know who did the charts on that show.
Wow.
Oh, I do too. We played his birthday party. What was his name?
You're talking about For the Boys?
Yeah, not quite. Man, I can't remember exactly.
Tierney's here. Josh.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Tierney.
Tierney's
But then, you know, but there were a lot of the guys who were in that band when I first came and started subbing for Ray. There were a lot of guys in the big band that were out of that For the Boy, because Ray Brinker had done it, right? I think. I mean, I guess I thought like Andy Martin, some of those guys. Sal, I'm assuming. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll have to. No, I think if I look at the movie, I don't think it is those guys. But I'll double check.
Here, I always thought that was like the birth of the band that was happening at.
It was right after that Jack decided. Well, I mean, there's a whole thing of how the big band started with Jack, because I was there. I was actually there before that, but I wasn't involved in Jack at that point. Jack was doing little things for me here and there, but that was before he started his big band right after that, because when he saw the movie, he knew that he could. And up to that point, you know, he only had, well, I mean, I want to say all this stuff, but he only had 11 charts.
Right, and they were like Bill Holman charts and stuff.
Yeah, there was like the who's who, it was like Bill Holman and who's ever, the writers in LA. Everybody kind of wrote them a chart, and and then they were done with it. I guess that was the idea. And
once they found out how much he was willing to pay him,
Well, that's but there were 11 charts, so he didn't really have enough for a big band or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
And so that's what that's what we started with at the when we started doing rehearsals up in LA at 47 on Tuesdays, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, it sounds right. Yeah, by the time I came in, it was a well-oiled machine. Lots of charts, and you were still bringing things in.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a lot of stuff, and I had just always imagined that the whole band had just gone back to the For the Boys thing, but I didn't realize there was a little. And then before that, he had Hollywood Heroes. And did you do any of the stuff with them?
No.
That group? No.
No.
I know Dave Stone played a little bit for that.
Oh, did he? Yeah. I would miss Dave. We should do a show on Dave Stone. I think that would be nice.
Yeah, he'd be another one to do a thing on.
Yeah.
Tierney, how are you?
Tierney.
We can't hear you. Oh, no.
Hi there.
Hi.
Now.
Hi there. Good to see all of you guys. It's the Jack Sheldon. I mean, I think of Tom Kubis as so key to the sound of Jack's big band. I mean, there's no question for all of us. There's certain little Kubisisms, I call them, that I just absolutely I adore in your writing. You had such a huge impact, and the guys always talked about how great your charts felt to play and how much they swing, and I think it really was kind of like this beautiful jewelry setting to put the gem of Jack in,
Yeah. I mean, it was. I didn't realize at the time how great of a match it was, and then people started telling me later. But because I was just writing the way I heard Jack, Jack sounds like Jack, and you have that in your mind as you're writing, and
sure,
it just worked out. And
it was one of the first times I ever played on a band where the charts were a big band, and of course they roared and the shout courses and everything, but the middle was small group. It was all about setting up blowing, and I mean, you don't usually read down big band charts that then have the entire 32 bar section written out, and then it just says open backgrounds every other time, and there could be 5 soloists,
Yeah, or one Mike Vaughn solo.
Yeah, or one Mike Vaughn. Yeah.
On Caravan or Cherokee.
Cherokee, any of those. Yeah. No, I know.
No. But I remember just thinking that the Kubis charts always read down perfectly the first time, at least the first time I got to them, and there was not pencil all over them. And I'm sure Jack, everybody knew the same thing. If you brought a chart and it was going to play, you could read it on the gig if you wanted.
We used to do some. I mean, he asked me to do some, and then I just bring him to the gig, and we just play them. And pretty much everybody knew both of my licks, so we could play.
Did you guys already play an example of this?
No, not just yet. But this is so great that you guys are all sharing stories, because we haven't really done a proper introduction for the people at home just yet.
We're just having a little party, hanging out and seeing each other.
And that's totally fine. So everybody at home, welcome. If you've been on planet Mars, then we're talking about the great Jack Sheldon. This is the West Coast Jazz Hour, hosted by Josh Nelson and myself, and we're so glad that these 3 amazing musicians are here to join us and to talk stories and talk music about Jack. And let me quickly introduce everybody. We were supposed to have the great Wayne Bergeron, but he's the busiest guy in showbiz, as we all know. So he got called to perform actually with Gordon Goodwin tonight at Vibratos. So I got in touch with Dave, and the great Dave Tull, a wonderful drummer and vocalist, was able to join us at the last minute. So thank you so much, Dave, for joining us. Our second guest is one of the greatest composers and arrangers, in my opinion, in the world of big band jazz. He has his big band already for the last 35 years and worked extensively with Jack, and it's the great Tom Kubis. Welcome, Tom. Thank you so much for being here. And then last but definitely not least, we have 9-time nominated, Grammy Award nominated vocalist. 9 times. It's incredible. And she's had her I might be lying, but is your band already together for 20 years or longer?
30.
30.
Years. Yeah, and I think in 2022 or 2023, early 2023, it'll be 30 years since we first started playing together, which we started playing together because I poached them because they were the rhythm section for the Jack Sheldon Big Band that I went to see in 1992 at Catalina's, Mr. Kubis.
Yeah.
And
you couldn't help it, could you?
No, I couldn't help it. And I heard that rhythm section, and in so many ways, the band led to everything really great in my life, and very much a West Coast jazz story, because I used to go to the Musicians Union and listen to rehearsals to learn and take notes from Jack, and of course go to all of his gigs, but I'd go to the big band rehearsals on Thursday mornings or whenever they were.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
It was so great. And it was the first time I met Alan Bergman, the great Alan Bergman of Alan and Marilyn Bergman. And I talk to Alan about every other day, and he's become like a father and mentor and, inner circle, lovely human being in my life. And we always talk about how that's the first time we met, because both of us would go just to enjoy listening to a great big band,
Even in that crappy little room that they used to rehearse.
Who cares?
Yeah.
And then you got to see the models wannabe singers get up and do their tune with Jack and have him do his whole shtick. And I wasn't guessing with the band. I was sitting in a corner taking notes because I just wanted to learn from Jack, and it was just such a pleasure,
What is actually really cool to note is that this company of our company of people were there at Jack's memorial concert at Catalina's, because Josh actually took. I knew who Jack Sheldon was, and I'm so regretting the fact that I was able to go see him, but I didn't know who Jack was. And then Josh told me, "Oh, you got to come over to this memorial concert because it will be great." And it was the entire band. Dave, you played. I saw you, Tierney, singing, and Tom was in the band, and they played all of your charts also that night. And Berghofer was there, and Holman was there, and Mandel was there, and Chuck Finley played Shadow of Your Smile, and I was like, I'm just a fly on the wall. Who is this guy? And then I found out later, who Jack actually was. So I'm so regretting the fact that because I was here when his big band would still play at Catalina's, but I'm very glad that I got a little impression at the memorial concert. But we were all there actually, and that was so special. It was such an incredible concert.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the other thing that's interesting is, when I first moved to LA, 92, 93, my friend, who all these guys are going to know, George Graham, took me into his basement, and he said, if you're gonna be on the West Coast, there's something you need to hear. And he played me the record that is behind Josh's head, the My Fair Lady, Shelley Mann and His Men, the unoriginal cast. He played me the whole thing. And I'm getting a chill right now thinking about what a huge impact that record had on me. I even, I got to introduce Pat Metheny to the Bergmans, and they've been writing together, and they did one song, and Pat invited me to sing it with his band in Santa Barbara a couple years ago. But I was doing the Shelley Man and His Men that afternoon, so I said I can come, but I won't be able to make it up there until 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and then we can do the run through. And this is why. And I sent Pat a YouTube link to that, and this is what a mensch Pat Metheny is. He sent me back an email and he said, "Good Lord, I can't believe that I think of myself as hip, and I've never heard what you sent me.
Yeah.
Everything about that is so incredibly first rate.
Yep.
I mean, he just went on and on about it, and I was like, you're just a mensch, Pat Metheny. And he was like, I can't believe how I didn't know about this. So
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
What you're saying, Tierney, is absolutely true about what you're saying and what Pat is saying as well, because Josh introduced me to that record, and when I heard that record for the first time, it blew my mind. It is so incredible, and somebody here, yes, the arrangements are incredible. Jack singing and Irene Krall, and then the bands. And
oh my gosh,
and I'm a drummer myself, and Shelley's drumming is just incredible on that record. And
I got to have dinner with John Williams with Alan and Marilyn about maybe 6 years ago, which was crazy. Just to their assistant called me up and said, oh, Alan and Marilyn want to know if you can have dinner on Wednesday night, and I often would have dinner with them just with me. And I got there and there was a limousine there, and I thought, okay, what's this? and it was John Williams, and I didn't say a word the whole night, but except I said to him, most people are going to be starstruck by you because you wrote Star Wars and all of the movie stuff you've written and all the great compositions. But I am starstruck because you're the arranger for the unoriginal cast, My Fair Lady. That is such a masterpiece. And I just told him it literally had changed my life. And he's like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
A few $1 billion later, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
He had definitely been around the block, because I remember playing Dave Pell octet gigs at Charlie O's.
Yeah.
And there were like arrangements. I think maybe they were like the actual pencil or something, and they were Johnny Williams.
Yeah.
Johnny Williams.
From like 1951 or something like that. Johnny Williams.
Yeah.
So somebody in our feed, Tierney, is saying that you performed the unoriginal cast as well. Did you get to perform that?
Yeah, I've performed it actually 3 times, in its full form, I performed it 3 times, and once with Jack.
Right.
Which was cool. I did it once. Did it twice with Pat Tuzzolino many years ago in Palm Springs, and Alan Broadbent conducted, and that was really great and so fun. And then I did it once in, I think it was Orange County, at one of the jazz parties with Jack. And it was really hard for him to do it by that point, but all he has to do is, why can't the English? And then you're just fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he did after that. So it was really hard for him because he was failing a little bit, and he was having a little trouble with it. But even though he was having trouble with it, it was freaking Jack. You can't, so I did get to do it once with him, and that was just
My goodness.
unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, I know Flip Man has the charts.
Yeah, well, she does, and actually, when we decided to do it for the memorial, I said, it would be really great to do this, because for me and for so many people, this had such a huge impact on us, on our lives, on our whole idea of what was possible. Right. And so we called Pat and asked him to do it, and figured out just a little piece of it to do for the thing. And then we were having trouble finding the charts. Oh. And first we called. Who did we call first? I can't remember, but we couldn't get the charts. And then finally somebody said, I think Flip has them. And so we went out to Flip's house and we got them out of her garage. And actually the person who conducted it, Julie Bernstein, still has those charts, and we got to return them to Flip. But anyway, yeah, it's amazing. And just looking at the pencil on the charts, it was just like, oh my God.
Oh God.
Wow.
Don't give them back to Flip. Send them to the Smithsonian.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
So they can be properly enshrined, or at least
Properly
protected
stored,
from
too.
mold
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. Wow.
Right.
So we Probably should play something.
Let's play something.
Yeah,
Enjoy some
of these
music.
people have no idea who Jack Sheldon is. So
Yeah.
We've been going at this furious pace.
Yeah.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah.
careening at this furious pace.
We're all just doing little Jack lines. Okay.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
I've
Totally
been in
love it.
Jackland just listening to records all the last couple weeks, and just Apple Music stuff that I had not heard from other records, live records he did, and the shit that he was doing when I played with him in the early 2000s, he was doing a long time ago, but he slightly would alter it or do these little extra things, or, oh man, I've just been in heaven.
He's got a comedy album too. He actually has a whole album of just comedy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know him. But
Yeah,
Jack,
he did like a jazz opera, like a whole.
Yeah.
That Freaky Friday thing is a whole jazz opera, and when Jack was towards the end, and we were getting together on Sundays sometimes to jam over at his house just to play tunes, and we'd play like 2 tunes, and then we'd sit around for like 45 minutes. But one day, Diane played the entire Freaky Friday jazz opera for us, and I had never heard it. So, I mean, it's just so out. It's so funny. And it definitely, it's like, oh yeah, that's just like he wasn't. Yeah, definitely. He was consistent, if nothing else.
Yeah.
No, but I would encourage people, despite everything that we're saying, to just pay attention above all to the playing of this guy.
Yeah.
He was, in terms of a jazz, bebop, West Coast style trumpet player, I think he's just my favorite of all of them.
Yeah.
Just the accuracy, the tone, the spirit. And I heard him play so much. I would go, when he was playing his like 2 nights a week, I'd go almost every week, find somewhere to go and listen to him play. And just the beauty and consistency with which he played that instrument was just unparalleled. And so you hear these things and you just hear the solo and you're just like, whoa,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people took for granted that what he did, it was so jacked that it was just like he just did it. But when I was doing charts for him, he would practice trumpet for 4 hours a day, and then he would practice vocals for 4 hours a day. And I would do charts for him, and then I'd do these demos, and then he'd put them up on his stereo, and he'd play all these charts like down right in a row. And he took lessons. I mean, vocal lessons. He took trumpet lessons, and this stuff that seemed to come so natural and off the cuff. And that's why I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for who he is. Jack is the ultimate inside joke. Most people just go, "Oh, he was on Merv Griffin. I know him. Yeah." But they really didn't know who he was. Everybody who was anybody knew who he was, but most people just didn't know. But
It's like people knowing Bobby McFerrin for "Don't Worry, Be Happy" and thinking that that's Bobby McFerrin. It's ludicrous, the level of musicianship and what's really going on there is something entirely other.
Hard to explain that.
And people used to come up to Jack on the breaks at gigs and say, "I loved you on the Tonight Show. You were so great on the Tonight Show." And Jack would always just go, "Yeah, great." Like he wasn't even going to correct him or anything. It's like, "Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we just love it." Well, you should play something, right?
Play something.
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned that you wrote charts and you sent us a good amount of stuff to show. So
whatever you want to play,
Yeah, we got Have You Met Miss Jones, Stars from Alabama.
I'm going to do Rainy Day.
Rainy Day.
Oh, Rainy Day is good.
Now, this is interesting. Before you play it, we did the session. He got in trouble for it too. We did 18 tracks one night, and we got out of there, before midnight. But we did that many tunes, and then Tom Rainier had never seen the book before, but Tom Rainier was a piano player that night, and so Tom is sight reading. Here's that Rainy Day. We didn't do any second takes. This was one take after another, and that's how great the band was.
That's LA musicians, man.
Yeah. So Rainier's never seen it, and listen to Tom, because Tom plays like he's playing like Oscar Peterson through the entire chart, and it's beautiful, and it absolutely fits what Jack is doing, and it just is so. But he that's Tom Rainier, but
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing, you know.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And this comes off of the record Jack is Back, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's Jack is Back. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Right.
there's three
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here's that rainy
Put my
day.
light on.
Hold on to your seatbelts.
Whoa.
I'm not hearing it.
Light on.
And we should all mute besides them. We're still not hearing this. They're hearing it.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it.
You guys hearing the music?
Not yet.
Now,
No?
No. No.
now
Okay.
we are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're hearing what's in your room. We're not hearing anything else.
Mm.
Oh,
Woo!
what
Yeah.
a start.
Yeah, that band was just crazy. Band was,
Yeah.
of course, we've been rehearsing, you know, every week up in LA, but we just walked in, just did all those. There were no second takes. It just,
Was that at Golden? Did you do that at Golden West?
no, we did that up. You know, I can't remember. We might have done it. Blah 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 blah. What was that little tiny studio off of Sunset?
Stag
Oh.
Street?
No,
No,
that's
no,
Van
no.
Nuys.
I know it was by
Not
the
Stag
Spaghetti
Street,
Factory.
Sound.
I know the one you're talking
That
about.
engineer that he passed away a while back. He was great. He did a whole bunch of albums.
Oh, what was that place called? It had a funny name. Yes, I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was off of Sunset. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
But in any case, yeah, it was not a very big room, but good sound.
He had Harvey Korman, who was a big fan of his, come in, and you know, so you know, and Harvey Korman is sitting there, and so Harvey wants to come in and say hi to the band. Oops, I got a cat here.
Cats are showing up.
Anyway, yeah. So anyway, Harvey Korman comes in, and all everybody could do in the band was do like Blazing Saddles jokes.
Yeah, right. How would you not?
That's all he did. He goes, he finally left. He goes, "God, you guys just get a life," you know. And he walked out.
It's Headley. Headley.
Immediately what they said when he walked in. Oh, it's Headley. Oh, no.
How could you not? How could you not?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know.
Not Sage and
that's
Sound,
great.
was it?
Sage and
Sage
Sound.
and Sound. That was
Yeah.
I did an album
Yep.
there not long ago. They
it.
reopened
Is
it.
it
still there?
Wow.
Yeah, they had closed it and reopened it. It's not the original guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
right.
he passed. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's great. It's good that
Yeah, what a chart. I'm sorry about the muting thing. I forget that you guys can't hear it when I mute that. But
All right, so on the recording, it'll be clearer than what we heard, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good because that's so beautiful. I don't want people to miss.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great chart.
Yeah. Oh man, that's one of my favorite charts actually.
Killing.
That Tom actually
Killing.
wrote. And Tom, did you talk with Jack? Like, did he have any preferences, or did he just give you free reign whenever you wrote?
free reign.
Ah.
Just, he'd give me, he said, it'd be great, from week to week. He goes, it'd be great if this tune, I like this tune. Okay, great, And so then next week I'd bring a chart. I probably brought in 5-6 charts a week for them to play, go, just do them. And we just did them, and he sang them down. One, you were talking about the vocalists, Tierney was talking about the poor vocalists who he would drag in. They really didn't say, they looked great, but they weren't necessarily singers. And that was not the qualification. And so anyway, I brought in this chart. I said, "Have you heard this? Don't worry about it, man. I did this chart for a guy a long time ago in Orange County here on a gig because they wanted it on a gig. And it turns out it turned out to be a really good chart. And so I said, this chart, it says, that would be one for her to sing. I said, well, okay, but it's, it's kind of a heady, just kind of a really cool chart.
And it starts out a cappella, doesn't it? He's
Yeah.
got to go, don't worry about me.
It didn't before.
Oh.
And that's, he adapted it, And so we played it, and Tierney loved this. We played it, and so she had learned it, and I can't remember her name. And she had learned it kind of, but she wasn't a singer. And I'm sorry for that. That's just the way it was. And so
It's better that we don't remember her name. It's better.
I know, that's sad. And so anyway, we got done with it, and she didn't get through it, but the band kept playing, blah, blah, blah. And Jack just told her to sit down. He says, I want to do that. And so that was how this thing started. He said, but let me play the first one. And so that whole jam, and it's probably the centerpiece of, I think, when we were playing with that band, because out of nowhere, he wouldn't introduce it. He would just play the first note. Yeah. And that, you talk about somebody where you get somebody, this thing about jazz where you play one note, you know who it is, that you know exactly who that is. And he would play that one note. And that one note seemed to have an entire career of booze and drugs, but that one note had an entire everything on that, and he started, and everybody just melted. And he played the first by himself.
And craft, one of the things that he told me was, he studied with Yuan Racy, the great trumpet player and pedagogue and supporter. He would go around and watch everybody and come to everybody's gigs. And he would say, Yuan tells me that every note should be a pearl. And I can't tell you how many times I've said that to my vocal students. That you never sing a note without thinking of the tone and the pitch of that note and centering it. That you can't, and I hear that in Jack. There is not one careless note. Nothing is thrown away. Yeah, there's lots of nuance, there's lots of dynamics, there's lots of swing, there's lots of everything. But everything has a standard of such a high level of craft.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can hear that. And so he would talk about that.
Yeah, the other thing. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember I played that band. I remember a lot of the charts, but I will never forget hearing Jack, because I hadn't played that chart. We were playing at Moonlight Tango.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I'm sure I was probably subbing for Ray, and like you said, Jack didn't introduce it or anything. He just started. And you want to talk about one of those musical moments in your life where he started that, and we just sort of came in, and Trey was doing it, and I think probably Christian Jacob, that same
Yeah,
group.
that's a group. Yeah.
And I mean, hearing Jack play the melody instrumentally first, he would do the whole chart instrumentally, and then he would come around and sing basically from the top of the chart vocally. And it was one of the few times where I thought, wow, I almost didn't need to hear the lyric because of the way he played it on his horn. It's a really sad song. But I mean, the way he would hold a whole note, like Tierney was talking about, it reminded me, the only vocalist I could think of that it reminded me of was like hearing Sarah Vaughan holding a long note. Like it just went places always, and it just didn't just sit there, unless that's what he wanted, Yeah. But yeah, when he would just go, ba, 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 and you just go, what is this?
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
I heard it recently because somebody tagged you, Tom, on Facebook or something like that, and it put or it was some kind of like YouTube video with your band, or maybe at Golden West.
My band at I believe it was Los Alamitos High School. We were playing a concert there, and somebody videoed that 1991 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Right. That was and I heard the arrangement not too long ago, and I listened to it, and it just went straight to my heart. It was like, oh, good Lord.
You guys better play that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Tom, I have to ask you, who played piano on that track? Is that the same session? Because the piano playing is pretty adventurous on that track, and I've always wondered who it was, and I've never been.
Where on
Don't Worry About Me?
Which recording? Where did we record that at? I can't remember.
Well, it was either on Jack Sings or on Jack Is Back. I think it might have been on Jack Sheldon Sings. I'm not sure, but
I think Christian played one of them, and I think Rainier played one of them. So I can't.
It might have been Rainier then. I remember noticing the.
Oh, it is Rainier.
Thing.
It is Tommy. Wow. Yeah, because he's just Tommy.
He's like going, get up on a.
But the one thing about Jack that I think a lot of people don't realize, and I think it's so important that you look on Facebook and you go, okay, here's the trumpet group, here's the saxophone group, here's the trombone group, and everybody's practicing. They got their scales down, and they've got they play the fourths. They can do, we got our fourths down, and we got the saxophone, the whatever book, whether it's the Omni book or the Oliver Nelson book or the Bricker or whatever. They've got that book, and they're nailing it. And you can and when they play, they're looking at transcribed solos. You can't transcribe a Jack solo. Jack solos, if you put them out there, there's no bebop in there. There's no that's not the way he played, and that's what got him in trouble with Benny Goodman, because when he was playing with Benny Goodman, he would play, and it's this Jack style that doesn't really make any sense if you put it on paper. It's all heart, it's all emotion. It's just this Jack. It's just thing. And Benny used to stare at him. Jack told me the story. And Benny used to stare at me. He goes, which is the old stare, but he goes, what? And he said he felt bad. Jack felt really bad because they stared at him. It was like, man, it's terrible, But he played. He pointed at him and play, and they'd stare at him. And finally he said it was like, I think a month into the gig, and Benny came up to him, and Jack kept saying, am I doing okay? Whatever. And Benny came up to him and goes, we're talking about the stare. Why are you staring? And he goes, Benny asked him, he said, well, what do they call that? What do they call that? When Jack says, what? The way you play, what do they call that? And Jack goes, that's just the way I play. And he said a silly thing like that, and then Benny never bothered him ever again.
Yeah.
The Jack solos, if you put them on paper, they're not going to make any sense at all, because you have to have spit, you have to have heart, you have to have you're slurping up and down, you have 10 dynamics on one note. I mean, it's stunning, but it's a whole different
See,
level.
now I'm going to just have to try to transcribe one because I don't know. I always hear him as a singer. Right. I always hear his solos as so lyrical and so singable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He sings his solos, and it reminds me a little bit of Chet Baker, sometimes, and who he called Chetty, and he loved.
Kind
And
of rivals too.
yeah, they were kind of rivals, but Jack would always talk about, oh, Chetty, I love Chetty. Chetty was great. And I think Chet really loved him. And, Chet didn't read music and knew nothing about harmony. He was a totally natural player. And it just came from his heart. But now I'm going to go back and listen, because I mean the solos that he plays on my records, I don't know. I think I could take them down, and I think I would like to take them down. And I think they'd make sense, but I don't know. I mean, they certainly they're not going to sound the way that he can make them sound, because of what we were saying before. Like all he has to do is play one note, and it's got the world in it. So
yeah, you're not going to hear. Yeah, go ahead.
People shouldn't misunderstand what Tom is saying. I mean, it's not. I mean, Jack's solos were impeccably inside the changes. Always in a really inventive way. It wasn't like he was just playing whatever, and because it had so much soul, it was okay. But there were times where he played 8/8 notes in a bar, but there were those times where he would just sort of throw off a bunch of notes, and they were all right there. But I think what Tom's getting at is like, well, how do you write that out? It's
that's true.
And you're like, okay, I can slow it down. I can figure out every one of those notes. But would that be a seventh? Or is that groups of seven? What is it?
Yeah.
I think he wasn't a metronomic. I mean, he had great time. It was always tied down. But I mean, he painted over the top of the thing. But impeccably in the changes. Like never lazy about anything. You hear that solo on the last tune we just heard. I mean, he's hitting all the notes.
I would like to, sorry to interrupt, Dave. We had an audio issue, and people did not hear that. And I would like to play it again. It's only 3 minutes and 11 seconds, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Before we get into some more music.
Yep.
We can do that.
Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, I had a funny audio setting.
But now we talk about that solo, so listen to the solo.
Exactly.
Now you figure out how you could write this down.
Let me get some staff paper.
And I think the other point that you were making, Tom, is that he's not spitting out bebop vocabulary that he's taken from anyone else.
Yeah.
He's making his own vocabulary.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's radical.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally unique sound on the instrument, through and through. Yeah. So, if you're just joining us, we have Tom Kubis, Dave Tull, and Tierney Sutton. We're celebrating the music of Jack Sheldon, the great trumpet player and everything else that he was. And we're just gonna
bon vivant, man about town, raconteur.
Totally. And this is Tom's great arrangement of Here's That Rainy Day, which we're just a little replay here for those who missed it because of the sound issue.
And I'll mute.
Yes, no mute, and I think I fixed it. Okay, here we go.
Maybe I should have saved those leftover dreams. Funny, but here's that rainy day. Here's that rainy day you told me about. And I laughed at the thought that it might turn out this way. Where is that worn-out wish that I threw away after it brought my love so near? Funny how love becomes a cold, rainy day. Funny that rainy day is here. that worn out wish that I threw away after it brought my love so near. Funny how love becomes a cold, rainy day. Funny that rainy day. Funny that rainy day. Funny that rainy day.
Yeah. Maybe it's a cool idea because we talked about first that when you got in touch with him, Tom, to write for him, that he only had like 11 charts, and I believe that might be from this record that he has done with the West Coast All-Stars. And this is also a really, really killing record that I'm sure that all of you guys are familiar with it, where he has Art Pepper and Chet Baker, Stu Williamson, Mel Lewis is on drums, Joe Mondragon is, I think, on... No, it's Buddy Clark on bass.
Buddy Clark.
Yeah, Buddy Clark is on bass. Yeah, the All-Stars, to maybe show something from that. And then we can also show something from you, Tierney, because you mentioned that he has played on a few records of yours, or a few records, or just a couple tracks, or...
He played 2 tracks on one of the band's records, and then I did a couple of records of other artists where I sang with him.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we can definitely listen to something like that. So, let's see because we see it here. Conti Condoli, Harold Land, nobody good.
Couldn't get anybody.
Paul Mower, and Paul Mower made also some of the arrangements. Vince DeRosa is on it. Anybody have a preference off of this record for a tune?
What are the tunes? I don't know.
Tunes are Green Dolphin Street, I'm Also a Person, I Had the Craziest Dream, Arrivederci, Brown Cow, Anyhow, Julie Is Her Name, Aplomb, Sunset Eyes, and JS.
And none of those charts were the ones that he had in his book.
Oh.
So either they kept them or didn't give them to him. There were a lot of people who wrote stuff for him, and then they didn't give him the chart. So kind of an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Maybe Green Dolphin Street. I mean, wasn't Green
I was going
Dolphin
to say
Street?
that too.
Yeah, that's
Or was
a good one.
there was an arrangement. I don't know if there was an arrangement in the Big Band book, but I remember playing that with him so often that he would always open the small groups with that.
Right.
Yeah.
I would always play that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's listen to that.
Play that.
Okay.
No.
Here we go. Yeah.
That's a small group. Yeah, that's a small.
That's a small group, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Marty Paich lineup. Yeah.
Very West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
There's
Like the
almost
Dave-
nothing more West Coast than that.
Yeah, like the Dave Pell thing or the Shorty Rogers thing. It was a lot of those sort of small horn bands that were making those kind of records at that time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's all taste. Like, it's so tasteful how it's arranged and how it's played, and like how you continue that, Tom, and what you also in your own band as well. To me, it's kind of one and the same thing. It's everything is so super tasteful. So
It's interesting that having a lot of conversations with people from both coasts, how the West Coast thing kind of started this very precise kind of playing. And you might even think of it as cold sometimes, but it was very precise, and I think that's the great thing about writing for players out here, because like it's just every section that you write for, there's no squirreling and guys sticking out or whatever. It's like perfectly matched, and it's a very distinctive style on the West Coast, and it's worked with my band, and I just grew up in it, so I don't know any different. But there is a big difference between. I took my charts. We did a concert with Jack at Carnegie Hall, and I took my charts back there, and they sounded completely different.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. There is a thing out here that's there's a difference between the coasts.
Yeah, I remember when I was first touring and I couldn't bring along my band.
Yeah.
And even though there were great players in New York, they were interested in playing the way they wanted to play. And
Yes.
there's a selflessness in the way that the players on the West Coast play, because they're used to making other people's vision sound great.
Mm-hmm.
And so they and a lot of the levels of the people whose vision they're manifesting are not as high as their own level. And so they're used to having a humility in the way that they present the music, and the skill level is just so high. So, but I mean, even listening to, the high note he plays at the end of the solo in the first tune that we listened to, I would say what differentiates Jack from 99.9% of trumpet players, even on the West Coast, and I shall give no names, is that when he goes to that high note, it is so precisely in tune. It's not a high note to be a high note. It's that particular pitch in the center of it. And for me, my nickname when I was teaching at USC was the pitch Nazi. And so for me, I always felt like I was in good hands with Jack. Like he would never be like, okay, I'm going to be flashy now because it's cute.
Yeah.
No, it was like every note is a pearl. Here you go. Here's this.
Well said. Yeah.
Not I'm going to scream. He wasn't interested in screaming. He was interested in making a dramatic, beautiful note. But there it was. Ping, ping.
Yeah.
Along with that, what's funny is that he, like you talked about, writing a chart for him, and somebody actually had to tell me this, that you better, when you investigate whatever tune you're writing, check the melody. Because Jack is going to, whether he's going to move it here or there, he's going to sing the exact right note. So if you're going to write some stuff around him, or you think he's going to go this direction or whatever, be careful, because he's going to sing the exact right note. So whatever you write is going to have to line up with that. Jack's just like, but it isn't that at all, and it's just, it was just had to be so precise, and that really affected kind of the stuff that I did for him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, my first experience hearing Jack Sheldon play live was when I think my dad either snuck me in, or maybe it was okay because I was, whatever, the Money Tree in Toluca Lake.
Oh yeah.
With Ross Tompkins, just Ross and he.
Oh yeah.
And I was like 16 years old. And
Ross is between marriages to aging starlets.
You probably said that night. The memory. Thanks.
Oh, lots of Ross.
The memory I have is because I was a trumpet player from about age 12 through about 20. When I gave it up in college, I realized I just couldn't hack it. And piano was, of course, calling me out. But I was way into trumpet, and my teacher at the time said, "You need to go hear Jack Sheldon live." And I'm so glad he did. And that was one of the first things I noticed, actually, while he was playing, was his pitch and his time and his unique vocabulary. I still remember just that feeling of sitting in there and going, I've never heard anyone play like that. Of course, I was young and I hadn't heard that many folks, but even as I got to play in his band with Dave and Bob Leatherbarrow and Bruce Lett, I just was more and more enamored and amazed with every note and every phrase that he played. And he could take one chorus and just say this perfect thing, and then I'd hack out 3 choruses as he keeps going, yeah, he kind of egged me on. But what a master. I just love talking about the craft with him.
Well, what turned out all of this is that we were in the middle of it. I think all of us were in the middle of it. And now we have gotten older. He's gone. And now we look back, and it was a school of music that we went to that we didn't know that we were in the middle of. And we all know it now. You ask everybody who's on that band, whatever era, and they will tell you, or the people who played with him or whatever, and you just find that he was the best teacher probably that all of us ever had. He showed us parts of music that just didn't even exist, on paper. Right. But he just showed us this magical thing. We all see it now, and it's funny. We talk to everybody. It's like, wow, we didn't know, and now we know.
Yeah. Let's listen to something of Tierney's.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think I'd like you to play "Glad to Be Unhappy" because the solo he plays on it. I hadn't listened to it in forever, and I listened to it today, and I was like, oh, that solo just melt me, man. And it's a good example because what I would always do with him, I would go and listen to him, and I wasn't interested in doing something flashy with him. I always wanted to sing a ballad. You guys know Mink Jazz, the Peggy Lee album that he plays fills, and he was a master of playing fills. And so I would always get up and sing More Than You Know, or It Had to Be You, super slow, and the fills that he would play. Even there was one of those concerts that he did after his stroke. One of those birthday weekends that we did, I got up, and it's one of the things that just absolutely slays me. I got up and I sang More Than You Know, and I asked him to play fills with me. And this is, he's fingering with his left hand. Yeah. He's brain damaged, so he can't really sing lyrics anymore. And he did some of the most beautiful things behind me. And at the very end, I held a note, and he came in with me and joined and matched my vibrato on the note. And it's just like one of those things where, like, if nothing else happened that night, it didn't matter. And I noticed when I listened to this solo, he does that at the very end of this. So
wonderful.
That's super cool.
That's beautiful, Tierney.
Yeah.
So this is from your, is it 2007 album, On the Other Side?
Right. It's all happy songs that aren't done in a very happy way.
I love this record. This was one of my first introductions to your music, this album.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, Tierney Sutton, Glad to Be Unhappy, featuring Jack Sheldon.
Fools rushing, so here I am, very glad to be unhappy. I I can't win, but here I am, more than glad to be unhappy. Unrequited love's born, and I've got it pretty bad. But for someone you adore, it's a pleasure to be sad. Like a straying baby lamb with no mammy and no pappy, I'm so unhappy, but oh, so glad. Like a string, baby lamb with no mammy and no pappy, I'm so unhappy, but oh, so glad.
That kind of messed me up. And when we did it in the studio, I remember at the end of the take, I was in tears at the end of the take.
Yeah. He would do that. Yeah. And you too, man.
Yeah.
Dude,
Whoa.
That's stunning. That's just wonderful.
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
It was always a gift, and it was so funny. I mean, I would always sing with him so tenderly and so quietly, and he loved it. And of course, audiences couldn't have cared less. And so what would happen is he would have me sit in on his gigs, and then he'd have some like really dramatic, frankly pretty horrible singer get up who would sing the loud note and put her arm up and and the audience would go crazy. And clap, and go nuts. And then I would get up there and sing my little introverted, quiet thing with his little fills, and they would be like, and it would piss him off. And there was one night at a club where we were, where that played out. I got up and did a little tender little thing, and the audience was like, yeah, what happened? I don't know, pass the pasta, like just not really paying attention to it. And then this woman got up and sang this really, really loud thing. And then after she left, he said to the audience, did she leave? And they said, oh yeah, she's gone. And he looked at the audience and he said, what is the matter with you? Do you want to be screamed at? Is that what you want? Why did you encourage that? He never got the gig again, but I can tell you he was my hero forever.
Yeah.
If that was at Monleone's West.
Yes, it was.
I was on that gig, and I remember.
So I'm not lying.
And I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm not going to say the name because
we don't have to. We don't have to.
Yeah, and he said, if I recall, his exact words were, if somebody's going to get on the mic, because I remember for this singer, we were playing, and I looked up at Jack as one of the mic is like on this person's mouth.
Right, she was feeding back a little bit throughout the whole thing.
Screaming out these high notes. and Jack is going. He's going like this, you know. And so it was after we came back after break, and he said, if somebody's going to sing into the mic a screechy high note like that practically makes your head explode, why do you people clap for that? Yeah. And I got in trouble after that because I told that story to Bruce Lett, who wasn't on the gig, the bass player. I said, oh, you should have heard what happened the other night. And I was overheard, unfortunately, by a good friend of that singer. And so she came over and she said, you know, I'm good friends with this person. I'm going to tell her everything you said.
Oh.
And I just said, well, I was just relating what actually happened. So I'm really sorry.
Well, another night I sat in at Lunaria and I did the same thing. And then one of the other band members, who was a well-known person and not really as serious a jazz musician as Jack, muttered under his breath after I sang, "Now that everybody's asleep." And Jack turned to him and said, "You wouldn't know good singing if it bit you in the ass." And he walked off the bandstand and he never played with that guy again.
Wow.
He literally left the gig. And I was sitting in the audience and I didn't know why. I just went back to my seat, and I know what the response is to that kind of singing in America, so it never bothered me. If Jack was happy, I was happy, but he was
I always wondered what made Jack stop playing that Lunaria gig on Tuesday night, because he suddenly wasn't doing it. I had
to me, it was like one of the greatest examples of true musical chivalry I have ever experienced.
Yeah.
It was like you can't buy that. It's just like, wow.
Jack was fearless in his humor and his singing. All the stuff that you're talking about, that was Jack. And there was no second best. There was not this was it. And he was going to tell everybody about it, and period, and there was no filter. It just went boom like that. And you had to either take it, whether it was a Jack Sheldon joke or leave, because it wasn't going to change. This was the way it was. At Disneyland, when he used to work out there, the line was, they'd say, "Don't let him talk. Just don't let him talk. Let him sing. Just don't let him."
Well, and Jack used to always say, "Was it something I blew?" When people, but the worst thing you could do with Jack was tell him a reason why he should cool it. That was the very worst.
No.
And we played a high school. Now, why somebody would hire Jack Sheldon to play at a high school, I can't imagine. But in any case, we played a high school. I think it was in Eagle Rock.
Oh no!
And with the big band, and it was like one of those midday assembly deals, and it was fun. And they had said to Jack, look, obviously you got a lot of young people here, so just be careful with the language. Big mistake.
Yeah.
So, all the standard lines he's coming out about how, that girl's really cute. She's 12, but she's got the body of a 9-year-old. All this unbelievably politically incorrect shit. But at one point, we were between tunes, and this is an auditorium filled with kids. And Jack said, and Tom, you had to have been on this gig because you were still, it was back. And he said,
yes.
Jack said, he goes, I remember when I was in school, there was always a teacher that everybody hated the most. He said there was always that one teacher nobody wanted to get who was like a real jerk. And he goes, you guys all know what I'm talking about. He said, so what I want to do is I'm going to count to 3, and I want everybody to yell out the name of the teacher they hate the most. And he counted to 3, and the place just erupted into just like, let's make a deal chaos, and people are screaming and yelling. And Jack is just sort of doing this. And he's going, no. And then finally he sort of simmered down. He goes, yeah. He goes, I think I'm hearing the name Mr. Brown. Is it Mr. Brown? And people are, and then he goes, where's Mr. Brown?
He came to Golden West, and and it was a big thing because he was on the Merv Griffin show, and so it was the first time I had him there. And so, the supervisors were there, the teachers were there, the administrators were there, everybody was all packed. And he walks out, and the first thing he says, I love the student body.
Yeah.
That was the first thing he said, Yeah, it's Jack.
But, Tom, speaking to your, and both of you, Jack's honesty, I mean, there was a night at Chadney's, and this would have had to have been, you know, relatively early in the time that I was playing with Jack, but there was some actor that used to come out and see Jack, and because I think maybe they had done some acting together on some show or whatever, but this person was more of an actor. And this person would come up, and we were playing the gig, and I guess they fancied themselves to be Jack's pal, you know? So in the middle of a tune, this guy comes up, and he starts like leaning in, you know, to sing with Jack on the head, you know, like together, like, hey, isn't this fun? The two of us are doing this. and we finished the tune, and then Jack said, he said, hey, why don't you do another one? You know, totally catching this person by surprise. And and they were like, oh, and he goes, yeah, look, you know, you're here on the stand. You should do another one. Why don't you do another one? And so then it was like, oh, well, what tunes do you know and what keys? And of course, there's nothing. So we ended up doing who knows what, some dumb song that nobody would want to hear. And we got to the end of it, and people are applauding. And then Jack said, yeah, he said, you know, he said, do I ever come to your movie sets and just walk up on the stand and just like start reading lines with you, man? He said, you know, do you think you could just come walking in here and do this? He said, you see how, you know, and he tore this dude apart. and then he said, and we're going to take a break. And then that was it, you know. But I mean, there was no like, hey, there was no tact. There was no like, listen, you shouldn't do this. He left the guy out there to do a song by himself so we could all just see what a sucky singer he was, and then took him down.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was.
Yeah,
It was
right.
great. Like you said, a moment of musical, I don't know, that's not chivalry really, but a moment of musical knightsmanship, I guess.
Yeah. Of some form,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, Jack. Oh my.
That's a great story. Wow.
Man, I'm
This is
learning
awesome, you
I'm
guys.
learning a lot.
Imagine how he would have done with the Me Too stuff, man.
Oh.
Woo, poor Jack.
He would have been one of the few to continue to get away with it, is what.
Right.
Well, but
Yeah.
the thing is that he wasn't, you know, he was the perfect example of your bark is worse than your bite.
Right.
Right.
You know, I think he was a fairly shy, very shy in a way. I mean, you know, all the years that I knew him and all the gigs I went to and everything, I think I had maybe 2 exchanges with him that really felt personal in all those years.
Guard was up.
It was always music, and as soon as he was off the bandstand, he was back chewing a carrot stick and waiting to play again. He wasn't going around to hang and schmooze. He was, you know, I said in the documentary about him that he was a jazz mystic. You know, that was all to him. It was all that. And when he couldn't do it, it messed him up. And so he didn't want to fall into addiction again. So he knew that the more he could have the trumpet actually touching his lips, the safer he was. Or being on stage doing his shtick. But when he was off stage, it was kind of hard to, you know, have a talk with him.
Yeah, I watched it a little while ago. I have it right here.
The video, the DVD.
Yeah.
It's the DVD. Yes, people, there are still DVDs out there. And all three of you are featured on this. And I watched it, and it just gives such a cool in-depth look in what Jack, what kind of musician he was. All aspects of his musicianship, his trumpet playing, his singing, his comedy. Also, what you mentioned, Tierney, about his ability to play behind singers and fill behind singers, because he's on Wham of Sam, and he's with Mink Jazz on Peggy Lee, and then
The Peggy Lee stuff.
and I'm blanking on another one that was featured on the record that he made with Rosemary Clooney, on the Still on the Road or something like that. But it's also really cool. Somebody said that actually literally in the documentary, that he's actually a very shy guy, and I think he also says it kind of himself, that he only feels comfortable on stage and that he can say whatever he wants to say when he's on stage. So so for anybody who's interested, that it's definitely worth checking out that documentary. It's a beautiful documentary.
And you know, there's something really, really beautiful about that in terms of the whole Me Too thing. I think that the horror of the Me Too stuff is the hypocrisy and the covert nature of it. You know, in my religion, it's said that truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues, and no other virtue exists without truthfulness. Jack was a truthful person, and so he would say his goofy things, but he was saying them on stage. He didn't follow you to your car and try to grope you.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything.
As far as we know.
Well, I mean, he never made the least kind of inappropriate gesture towards me, except on stage. He'd say all sorts of silliness. But, you know, in terms of what the real issues are of the earth, I don't think he harmed people ever. He just was obnoxious on stage sometimes.
Right.
And there was a truthfulness to it, and there was it was okay. So it's kind of like the exact opposite, you know. But in real life, he was this shy guy that I think wouldn't have hurt a fly, and you know, didn't.
That's true.
And maybe he did when he was drugging, and he probably would admit that, you know. And I think he says something about that in the documentary, that when he was drugging, that's a different thing. But once he was clean, I don't think there was a more sort of trustworthy guy that you could be around. He just was shy and he did his thing. But once he's on stage, he will say something that will clear your sinuses, and you'll just have to deal with that.
But always funny, though. I mean, it was never
Always
like, wow, why did he say that? It was just like, you know, that's funny. You have to laugh. I mean, that's sort of like Seth MacFarlane's thing, where he'll do all this crazy stuff. And, you know, but you're like, that's so uncomfortable, but gosh, it's funny, darn it.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
Which seems a challenge in nowadays, to be, because I mean, I'm younger, and I've seen a very big shift of comedians going from that route and being just, you know, straightforward and being truthful and being harsh but funny. And now it's kind of like, oh, those people have to move, you know, around certain obstacles or humps to still be funny and still be truthful, but not be as blunt anymore. I don't know, but you know.
Yeah, I think it's true.
It is true.
Well, there's a story that I always tell about Jack that I think is it's a defining one for me, and it wasn't even anything obscene. But we played a gig at Suzanne Summers' house in the Palm Desert, Palm Springs, and it was this really beautiful up the hill kind of thing. It was outdoors, and it was for her husband's birthday, and I can't remember his last name. It was Alan something. He was a actor guy.
I think Hamill.
That's it. Alan Hamill, right? And
wow, you guys know everything. That's so cool.
She had married Alan Hamill when she was doing the television show that she did in the 70s, and she already had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and I guess the relationship between those 2 kids and Alan Hamill was not good. So I'm not going to get involved in that, but in any case, at this gig, there was a point where they were doing toasts for Alan's birthday, and the 2 kids, who are now young adults, came up. The first one was the woman, and she came up and she finished her little speech by saying, "Dad, the one thing that I learned from you is if I want anything in my life, I have to do it myself." And everybody was sort of like, "Ooh, that's a little left-handed, you know, whatever." So then the son comes up, and he had emails that he had printed out in his hands, and he said, "Dad, here are some emails that you sent me when I was a teenager." And he starts reading all these really harsh. It was a good 2 or 3 minutes of reading through things about where they had been having, and everybody's looking at their shoes, you know, this is like a gala dinner, and the band is on the stage, and people were just melting, you know, the air was getting so thick, and the kid finished, and there was this pause, and then Jack just said, "Geez, Alan, it seems like your kids hate you." And everybody just laughed, and we all just like, you know. And that was it. I mean, he just went doof and just, you know, like surgical removal of everything that we were all experiencing. It was the best.
Perfect.
It was Jack Sheldon defined. just find that quick one-liner that's going to get right to the heart of it. And in that case, he was saving all of us.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Should we listen to a little bit more music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen to something else.
Yeah.
Uh,
Something from
whatever we have available.
Tom's
Yeah.
stash.
Tom's got. Well, you know, we were talking about that. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
We
worth
have that?
hearing.
We don't have it though.
But
Oh, you might not have that record.
No,
Yeah.
I don't have it ready to
No,
go.
you can't buy it anywhere. That's the problem.
Oh, that's maybe why, right?
It's off the market right now.
Let's play something else that we have, and then I can actually search.
Yeah.
can you play something from My Fair Lady, the unoriginal cast?
We could.
yeah.
Sure.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call, Tierney.
Maybe why can't the English teach their children how to speak? Or what's the one where they're all the same, they're all bad? What is
Yeah.
that? That's which one is that? What song is that?
I don't know, but why can't the English? That's the
No, wait,
that's the
wait.
very
So-
first song.
Why can't the English? That's pretty cool, but the one that's all the same, they're all bad. What is that from? Why can't a woman be more like a man? What is it? It's she'll
No.
she'll rearrange. She'll
you
what is that? Can you read the track listing on that thing?
Yeah, here.
It's right
Yep.
behind you, because I'll know what it is, and it's the one. It's got to be this one.
It's the one.
The overture and Why Can't the English? That's the first track.
All right, no,
And
keep
then,
going.
Wouldn't it be lovely
Nope.
with a little bit of luck? I'm an ordinary man.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm an ordinary man.
That's the
This is the one.
Okay. Just calling it up.
That's the full. That's the whole.
Check
record.
out his singing.
Yeah.
We can play from the start because the overture and Why Can't the
It
English?
goes right into it, right?
Yeah, it goes right into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ordinary man should be like somewhere. What says the 3/3? Like around 13 minutes.
13 in?
Let's see if we can find it.
In a line that never ends, come an army of our friends, come to jabber and to chatter and to
That's
tell
it,
her
yeah.
what the matter is with you. Who prefer
Yeah, that's it.
a pensive man am I, a philosophic
I'm an ordinary man. Yeah, that's it.
Great.
Eternal strife. Oh, let a
So they'll-
just an order
there it is.
and who desire.
Because
Needle drop.
Yep, needle drop, digital needle drop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here we go.
Can you guys hear it?
I think they can hear it. Good.
I'm an ordinary man who desires nothing more than just the ordinary chance to live exactly how he likes and do precisely what he wants. An average man am I, of no eccentric whim, who wants to live his life free of strife, doing whatever he thinks is best for him. Just an ordinary man. But let a woman in your life and your serenity is through. She'll redecorate your home from the cellar to the dome, then get on to the enthralling fun of overhauling you. Oh, let a woman in your life and you are up against the wall. Make a plan and you will find she has something else in mind. And so rather than do either, you do something else that neither likes at all. You want to talk of Keats and Milton, she only wants to talk of love. You go to see a play or ballet and spend a searching for her glove. Oh, let a woman in your life and you invite eternal strife. Let them buy their wedding bands for those anxious little hands. I'd be equally as willing for a dentist to be drilling than to ever let a woman in my life. I'm a quiet living man who prefers to spend his evenings in the silence of his room, who likes an atmosphere as restful as an undiscovered tomb. A pensive man am I, of philosophic joys, who likes to meditate, contemplate, free from humanity's mad inhuman noise. Just a quiet living man, but let a woman in your life and your sabbatical is through. In a line that never ends, come an army of her friends, come to jabber and to chatter and to tell her what the matter is with you. She'll have a booming, boisterous family who will descend on you in mass. She'll have a large, Bacterian mother with a voice that'll shatter glass. A little woman in your life. A little woman in your life. I will never let a woman in my life. They're all the same. They're all bad.
The way how he sings it,
I'm sorry. That's just one of the greatest things ever,
Yeah.
ever, in every possible way.
right.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Tierney, what John Williams' response was when you mentioned to him that, you know, like everybody's talking to him about Star Wars and you go about like My Fair Lady and the unoriginal cast?
He said something like, "Wow, I had forgotten about that."
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Like he just doesn't really, you know. But I think not too long after that, Diane Reeves did it at Disney Hall with Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Okay.
They did it at Disney Hall. So I think, and I don't know if he conducted it. Maybe he did, but I don't know. So I mean, it was coming out. People, you know, people know.
Yeah.
People do know. You can't. But
nobody
nobody will
was
ever
gonna
do it
do
like
it.
Jack.
I was
nobody's.
gonna say,
Yeah, nobody's.
could do it.
Nobody can ever do it like Jack. And you know, if Pat at all couldn't do it, I was thinking that Dave would have done an excellent job at the thing.
Dave,
Yeah, you would have. You'd have killed that too.
It'd be fun someday. Well, I'll start working on it now. Yeah, you know, the other thing that, I mean, your listeners, I don't know who we have, but you know, a lot of people, the other place that Jack is known is for all the Schoolhouse Rock stuff that he did. And I know it's kind of a drag because I've done a couple situations where people are like, "Hey, we're doing a thing about Jack Sheldon and we'd like you to sing a couple tunes," and I say, "Great." And then, you know, and then right away they want, you know, "I'm Just a Bill," and you think, "Oh, come on," you know, like that's. But you know what? It was really good, and just both that and Conjunction Junction. Like you listen to Jack, and there's like dialogue in there where he's talking to the kid back and forth, and it's another place where only Jack can make that happen. You know, the way they timed it out. I don't know if you would care to play
you
that.
guys have the one that I sent you. There's one called "Rock the Boat."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Let me do this. This is a weird one. Okay, nobody's heard this. That's the funny part about it. They started. They started doing these again after the first set of them, and so Jack came over and said, "We got to. They want us to do this," and so I had the music and whatever. So we put this thing together. So this was a demo for this thing called "Rock the Boat," and Jack's on it. I did some sequencing, and my son's on it. My daughter is like 3, and so this is the thing that we put together. It got rejected, but it's absolutely hilarious. Like you might get a kick out of this.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. Thanks for sending it. Rock the Boat. Here we go.
Turned 18, you're old enough to vote, but before you do, there's something you should know. At any government office across the nation, you gotta fill out a card that's for the registration. In your neighborhood, they set up the polls. You learn by mail where you should go. You cast your vote on the day of election. You step in a booth and make your selection. Rock the vote, there's no doubt. That's what voting's all about. You're choosing the people in the government. Congressmen, senators, even presidents, mayors, sheriffs, your pick. You get 2 years, 4 years, maybe 6. It's a simple process. Use your voice. Rock the vote and voice your choice.
Your vote counts, you have a voice.
Rock the vote and voice your choice. I love America. If there's a law in your state where you can challenge or create, you do it through initiatives or referendums. Those become propositions, but you need petitions and the right amount of voters to sign them. Rock the vote, there's no doubt. That's what voting's all about. On the ballot, there might be certain measures put there by the legislature, such as taxes, bonds, or propositions. All depend on your decision.
My decision?
That's right. It's a simple process. Use your voice. Rock the vote and voice your choice.
Your vote counts, you have a voice.
Rock the vote and voice your choice. America is so good. How do you know what you're voting for? They send you flyers and come knocking at your door. You learn all about them on the radio, newspapers, internet, and TV shows. It's a simple process. Use your voice. Rock the vote and voice your choice.
Your vote counts, you have a voice.
Rock the vote and voice your choice. Use your voice. Rock the vote and voice your choice.
Your vote counts, you have a voice.
Rock the vote and voice your choice. Oh, come on. Vote. You'll feel good. It's good for you.
Wow, an exclusive.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tom.
this Dutchman has learned something about how America votes.
Well,
It's all right there. You just play that, and that's, everything will change.
I
Yeah.
know. I think Jack Sheldon is going to single-handedly save American democracy from the grave. I mean, I actually think there's just some shot of that.
Oh.
Like, just him sitting there saying, I love America.
Yeah, I know. I love it. Yeah.
That is wonderful.
but
Yeah.
actually, yeah, and all those inflections he's using, he had a certain way of delivering those lines on those kind of things, and the same thing on the Schoolhouse Rock. It was very sing-songy, even as he was talking. It was always a joy. That's super great.
Yeah. That's very cool. Should we show some of those photos that you sent, Tom?
Yeah.
Send over some photos.
Oh, pictures.
Would
got
love
here.
to share.
Have these been cleared by the censors?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, while you're getting them, I can tell you that Joe Bagg and I did a gig recently, and
Yeah.
Joe was one of the pianists that also used to play with Jack. There was sort of this rotating posse of players,
Yeah.
And Jack said that, Joe was saying he can't get through a day without having a Jack Sheldon line come to him in a situation, and he just, it's like we're all keeping Jack's humor alive
Totally.
through life because it all made so much sense,
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack always called everybody the world's greatest musician, but I actually had him write it down.
He called
So
me the
then I
world's
I
youngest
knew that,
musician.
I
Yeah.
knew my place in the world,
Yeah.
And gosh, what was the name of the conga? There was a percussionist who used to hang around at Chadney's, who would always hang around and he would play. And I think he had done some studio work, and I can't remember his name right now, but he would always say, "Oh, there's so and so, the world's greatest conga player, if there can be such a thing." Oh man, what was his
Awesome.
name?
Wait,
Oh,
that's actually quite true, no, Dave?
Let's see.
oh, there he is.
sure where that's at, but talking about an arrangement, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Look at that look he's giving.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, a lot of love.
He was, you know what? There's 150 charts in his book that we finally put together, and he paid for them all. By the way, he refused not to pay for these arrangements, and so we made a deal. And I would bring in anything. I'd bring like 4 or 5 a week, and he took them all. He sang them all, and he paid for them all. I mean, he was.
Wow.
This was, you know, and he was adamant about it. You know, he told Joe, write the check. You know,
Yeah.
you know.
He wasn't a slouch. That's for damn sure.
No.
Not a slouch. No.
That's cool.
That's Golden West College. He would come down and play. Like I said, he'd say, I love the student body. And that was, how it started. And then, but he came, and the people in the, can you imagine being in the college class and this, like Jack Sheldon's come down, he's doing this, and these people just, they talk about this. They remember this the rest, they're to this day.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I
can imagine.
Yeah, conducting. And Steve Allen came down, and they actually did a concert together with both of them.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, that must have been cool.
Oh, that was.
It was great because Steve Allen, he came down to the school and he got lost. He didn't know where to go, so he walked into somebody's classroom, and the teacher was old enough to know who it was. And I heard about it till the day I actually left Golden West College. This person would come
Steve
over and
Allen.
so Steve Allen walked in my room, out of nowhere, Slowly.
That's great.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's that's at the Union there. That's that room, that little silly room.
And I think that's George Graham on the left, isn't it?
Yep.
Graham.
That's
Graham,
George and Jack,
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yeah, Andy and Sal.
That's Sal on the right side.
Sal.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's at room 2 or something at local
And-
47, the old room,
The old room.
Yeah, Stan Martin and Diane in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, Diane. Yeah, Diane took care of him, brought his trumpet and put together his trumpet wherever he went. And
That's right.
there he was. He always had that. One
Hi,
time,
Josh. It's Diane with Jack Sheldon. I just remember
Yeah.
her calling you.
Uh,
Oh my
one time he
God.
came down. He drove all the way down from LA to record here at the house, and she forgot to put his trumpet in the car. And so we got in. She goes, "I forgot the trumpet." He goes, "That's all right. We'll be back next week." So they just laughed,
Wow.
That's
Wow.
there's Mike Fawn
Yeah.
and Jennifer Hall and
And somebody serving a sorbet.
Yeah.
yeah. And
Is that like the
wait.
NAMM show or something?
no? That's where is that? That's used to play that club. It's on Ventura, isn't it?
Is that
Moonlight
Moonlight
Tango?
Tango?
Moonlight Tango.
Moonlight Tango. Yeah, that was what I was talking about.
There's Trey on bass with that hair. That's so.
I know,
and-
Trey. Well, and Ray also. You
Ray.
can see Ray with all that hair too.
Yeah, incredible amounts of hair.
Wow.
Yeah, George Graham back there. Boy, George Graham and having Wayne, George and Wayne, and George in his prime was just like, it was stunning. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
You couldn't get anybody good in that
And
band.
No.
That's Danny House.
Danny House is down there. Yeah, playing.
And there was a night at Catalina's during that time when Danny had brought this a date to the gig who came to see the gig, and of course you should never do that at a date. So Jack started talking on between tunes. He's like, "Yeah, Danny, I see you got your girlfriend here. Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, doing all this stuff." And then he's like, "So you two gonna get married? You two gonna hook it up for life? You gonna make it?" And Danny's like, and he's like, "No, come on. Do you love her? Are you gonna?" And then he said, "Come on." He said, "Come on, Danny. Are you gonna get married?" And Danny turns to him and he goes, "Pretty good." One of the few people who managed to get Jack Sheldon to back off.
Oh my God.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, this is like
Clint Eastwood.
did Like Jazz, which was Cy Coleman and the Bergmans, and we did that up in L.A. And Jack was a big star in that, and he would come
And
out-
drove Cy Coleman and the Bergmans and Larry Gelbart to drink.
Yeah,
crazy because he was not a Broadway guy, and you know, when you write a Broadway show, it's actually a legal thing that it has to be the same every night. Jack just basically did his act.
Yeah.
He just got up and did his act.
He did this. This is what he would do great. And you know, Larry Gelbart, he was like, you know, the script has to be, you know, and he got mad at Chris Lee one night because Chris Lee had a little fun on the break and played a couple solos and he made it through it, but anyway. There's this point in this play where Jack comes out and he does his lines and he's got his lines with the kind of MC guy, and it was like it comes to us, and we did this so often because we were there for like 3 months or something like that, and 5 nights a week, and he gets to this point, and we learned at that point if Jack says this, everything's normal. If Jack says this, it's all over. It's all freaking. And so at night he would start, and then the MC would be looking at him like, and then Jack would like all of a sudden say this other thing, and then like you said, it was his act, and hold on, and some people got it, some people thought it was funny, and most people didn't. You know, it was just but it was Jack, and you just rolled with the punches. You know, Clint Eastwood was a big fan of Jack's, a huge fan.
Yeah.
And probably of yours, Tierney, too, I'm sure. You know, well, of course, you know.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart, and we've worked together a few times. But yeah, he loved Jack, and in the later years, each time when Jack would have his birthday concerts, Clint would give me some kind of thing to play for him, or he always wanted to be remembered for him. And I remember actually, when they were here and we were doing the music for Sully, we were in at Warner Brothers doing it, and you know, he's usually in Carmel. He doesn't spend as much time in LA, but he really wanted to talk to Jack, and he was making such efforts to try to call Jack and try to get in touch with Jack and at least see him a little bit when he was here. He really loved him.
All those beautiful things you did on Sully are just absolutely stunning. I mean, they're just
sure are.
It's mostly Christian, but
I know, but man,
I got to do a few oohs and write some lyrics, so that was cool.
It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah.
I was a conductor on this. I'd never conducted anything in my life, and
Cool.
I couldn't conduct. And they said, "Well, you're going to conduct." And I go, "What?" I'm not, you know, because the tempos. It was like Broadway. You had to have the exact tempos, because otherwise everybody's like the dancers and they're all freaking out. And so like I'm going, I've never done this, you know, and she.
I bet you were better than they usually have.
I don't know. Sal said, "Oh, Tom's conducting. We're getting away with everything," which I thought was great. You know.
Thanks for sending those photos, Tom. Those
Yeah.
were great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Did you, Dave and Tom, were you on that ASCAP Awards gig that it was the big band with Clint Eastwood, John Lovitz, Herbie Hancock was there presenting?
I don't think I was on that.
I don't think I was either.
I don't.
What year was that?
I want to say 2006, 7, something like that. And I was just like, oh my god, this is my head's brain's about to explode with all this talent. Yeah.
Well, Jack had such a big following. You know, one guy that was really funny was that there's a guy who says, "Or your mattress is free." That guy on TV.
That dude.
I was a big Jack Sheldon fan. He was a huge Jack.
Really?
Oh,
all the time, you know.
No, I have a weird, funny one. My Maytag dryer was giving me problems, and it's old, you know, but it's a good thing. And I called Burbank Maytag, and Bob's Maytag in Burbank. And Bob answered the phone, and Bob came over, and Bob was 86 and has been fixing these things for 50 years and did it with his kid before that. And he said to me when he came and he heard me on name, he said, "You've worked with Jack Sheldon, haven't you?" And he fixed the hell out of my Maytag.
There you go.
And charged you double.
No, in fact, I had to give him extra money because I was like, you are not going to charge me that when you had to come twice and you had to bring all these parts and everything. That's not enough. I had to talk the guy, like the old school craftsman kind of deal.
Wow.
But anyway, big Jack Sheldon fan. I was like,
Jack
that's
Sheldon karma. All right.
That's awesome, Tierney. That's great.
Yeah, these stories are all
This is
really
just priceless.
Yeah.
You guys.
I don't think that I've laughed so hard on any episode.
Well, you should have tried doing a Jack Sheldon gig because I mean,
Yeah.
Josh, you did a
Oh.
lot of those, but especially the small group gigs. I mean, the big band was always hilarious,
Yeah.
and you never knew, and you'd be going along, and the set list is just there, and then there'd be between this tune and that tune maybe 10 minutes because Jack would just go off on some jag. But certainly that happened a lot on the small group gigs
Oh,
when
yeah.
we would do the Quartet, like at Jack's or Spaghettini and other places. And it was sort of like that moment that Tom was talking about in the show, but like all the time. You just never knew.
Right.
And especially there would be that occasional night where Jack maybe had a sore on his lip or he just wasn't
Yeah.
in the mood to play.
Yeah.
right.
And we'd play about 50% less, and he would just talk. And
Yeah.
it was almost always, once in a while, it would get weird, but it was almost always just this improvised
Yeah.
goofiness, and he had all these little weird routines. Like out of nowhere, he would just go, "Ow!" Permit me to introduce myself. And he had this whole thing about being a vampire, and I don't even remember what it was all about.
But
but
you
it
guys
was
see the Invisible Man? Remember the Invisible Man?
Oh, yeah.
Hello, the Invisible Man is here. He says, "Tell him I can't see him."
I can't see him now.
I can't.
Everybody in my band will say for no reason, I can't see him now.
And tell him to come back.
And Tom, do you remember that night at Catalina's when he invited up Sally Kellerman to sing? She sat
right.
on the bandstand for
All night.
two sets, and he never called her up to sing.
And
she was sitting there.
And after that was a warm up to an actual gig, right? And she was supposed to sing on the next gig. He did the exact same thing on the gig.
No!
Yeah, and Sally Kellerman was sitting literally next to us, like the fifth saxophone or whatever. And she's just sitting there, and she sat there for all night. Finally, she left, and he didn't care.
Actually,
Oh my gosh.
one of my favorite Jack Sheldon lines. I'm so glad you reminded me of it. There was another singer who used to hang around, Polly Podwell. I don't know if any of you ever dealt
Yeah.
with Polly. She's actually a good singer, but she was always jonesing to sit in on Jack's gigs. She was the opposite of what Tierney talks about, like sitting in the corner taking notes. Polly was like, "Jack, let me sing a tune. Let me sing a tune." And we went out to Catalina, to the jazz festival out there, and we ridden the boat. We got out there with the quartet, and Polly just about met Jack at the boat, like, "Oh, I can sing a tune, whatever." And she's talking to him, and up at the ballroom we're setting up, and she did the same thing, except she wasn't invited. She took a chair and stuck it over on the side of the stage and the whole thing. And finally, towards the end of the set, Jack said, "Well, we've had a lot of requests from Polly Podwell that she should sing a song."
And I learned so much when you talk about Jack being your teacher. For me, I always knew. Because when I moved to LA, I was already 30 years old, and I didn't really, or I was 28, I was almost 30. And I had never really had a career as a professional singer, and I wanted to. And I knew I had a lot to learn. So for me, every time I went to those gigs, I thought of it as graduate school. I was trying. And one of the things that I realized only after his passing was the reason I sit on stage is about 86% because it's what Jack did.
Oh,
And
sure.
if it was good enough for Jack and he connected with the audience, it was good enough for me.
Yep.
And so it's just so interesting. I mean, for me, I absolutely learned everything from him. And I used to talk to my students, and I still do. And I always say there is a protocol for sitting in, and you have to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And and here's the rules. And I learned those rules by watching people do it wrong. Jack. And, just figuring out how to be safe. Like, don't go up there with one tune that you absolutely have to do. Have a couple of choices. Don't have them all be ballads. Don't have them in stupid keys. Sing one tune and get off the bandstand. If they beg you, sing a second. But make haste to leave.
Yeah.
Do not make a pest of yourself. And so all of those things I learned from watching people do it wrong with Jack.
Well, and all the little things, like I catch myself on my gigs. There'll be a time when usually it tends to be true, but sometimes it's a horn where they're taking one chorus and they're coming to the end of the first chorus and they're railing, and I'll want them to take another chorus and I'll go go on, and that's Jack Sheldon right there. He used to always do that, go, and he'd yell in the last 4 bars. You'd hear that from over the side, you know.
You can hear
so
it on
then
the mini
Mike
disc
Vaughn,
recording.
so Mike Vaughn can jump in and take another one.
Well, and who knows? He wasn't afraid of having the rest of his band sound unbelievably great.
Oh yeah.
It gave him great joy. And that was one of the really, really, really moving things, at the very, very end, the very, very last time he was on stage, we realized he really couldn't play and he really couldn't sing, but to sit and listen to the band play his charts, listen to those beautiful players, you could just see on his face that meant the world to him. It wasn't about that he had to be playing.
No.
He just wanted to be part of it. And it was so sincere and so pure.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Oddly enough about Jack, that he would do these birthday parties and the places would be freaking packed with people, They'd love to see him. You couldn't even get in. I mean, I went to try and go see him a couple times. I couldn't even get in. I was going to get a ticket. And in his passing, they did that gig that I think a lot of you guys went to, and the place was packed. I think he could still pack the room being passed away. And people were going to dedicate something to Jack Sheldon. The room would be packed, and it would be just the most incredible, wonderful time, because everybody literally in their mind will see him and hear him and feel him like no other musician.
Well, that's what I felt during the memorial. I saw, and the place was packed.
Yeah.
It was.
And the other thing that was I thought it was funny was that, and I'm sure you all will know this, on the big band gigs, like he would, he'd do his shtick, and it was one of those things, and you knew a lot of what Jack did. I mean, there was a lot of things that he did over and over again. But the funny part about it was, like, the guy can, like the old joke, you could read a telephone book and he'd be funny. Jack would start a joke, and immediately the band is like in tears. He didn't even get the first couple words out. They knew what was coming. They just, they didn't even get to the punchline, and the band knew it, and we're all sitting like this. We're going like this.
And in those old days when Pat McCormick was always in the house, and he'd say, "Pat, oh Pat," and he'd just set up whatever,
Actually, that recording that you sent, Josh, one of the charming things, as I said, was all the in-between stuff between tunes, and Ross Tompkins. It's at Jack's in 2003. Ross Tompkins comes in, as he frequently did, and so the whole line about, sadly, he's living in a car outside Dale's Junior Market, and they had their little back and forth, and then. Just all the in-between stuff. You'd laugh so much. You'd laugh so much on those gigs.
Yeah. Oh my God, totally. There was this one gig, I might have mentioned it to you, Tom, and Dave. It was Bob Leatherbarrow and Bruce Lett, and we were up in the Hollywood Hills, and it was Tim Conway, Harvey Korman, Betty White, Ruth Buzzy, and I'm just there, and I know who they are because my dad, loved laughing and loved Carol Burnett show, so I already had seen a lot of that, so I knew who these people were. Yeah. We barely played. He was just doing his shtick. I mean, we played maybe one tune, and I'm just like, what is happening right now? I'll never forget that night, and really trying to study and watch and listen and just be open and laugh, but also see the rhythm of these geniuses. And Jack.
Well, the thing about Jack, I said he was fearless. We did a thing where, like, it was Barbra Streisand or whatever, and
or whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. And we had they had all these old comedians there. These guys who were like just like who did Blazing Saddles? Who was the
Mel Brooks, you mean? Or
Mel Brooks was there, and
Carl Reiner,
Carl
probably Carl
Reiner.
Reiner.
He was there that night, and they were all there. And so anyway, there are 4 of them, and they walked in, and it was like this is like the Four Horsemen. These guys are just like looking out their mind, amazing. And Jack was on stage, and then somebody said something to Jack, one of them, and I tell you what, these guys paled into what Jack, gave back at him. And he was funny, he was brilliant, but he was like on a level that was just, it was beyond.
Yeah.
That's what I really saw of something that I'd never seen before. But he could go past these guys. I mean, he loved all of them, but he was just this far above where they were at, and that was just a great moment to see. Like, this guy is this.
Well, he knew how to improvise.
Yeah, that's true. Very much so.
Yeah.
And he said he woke up with a fully clothed sheep.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, all of his lines.
I know.
He used to say he was so lonely that he shaved one leg so he could get in bed and pretend he was lying next to him.
I remember that.
And he also had that line. He would always pull it out. He'd say, "Last night I had the single most explosive sexual experience of my entire life." And there'd be this long pause, and then he would say, "The only thing missing was another human being."
When we were putting together the memorial, we sat for like a long time, and with everybody just like telling all the different jokes that they could remember. And we thought about putting it together in such a way that between each segment, somebody would get up and tell one of them. But we couldn't remember, we couldn't do them justice.
Right.
And so we decided, we'll just do music.
It's what you're saying is there has been this thing has been churning for a while, and now the joke is for all those people who were on there is just say the punchline. That's all you do. Just walk up,
right.
Tell somebody the punchline and of a Jack Sheldon joke, and that's a thing now. That's a real deal.
Yeah.
I guess
you can just drop her off anywhere.
Well, that was the home.
Who's the victim here?
Who's the victim here? Oh, see, that I'd forgotten about that one.
I gave my life to God, and I'm not so happy about what He's done with it.
Yeah. In all these years, I've learned one thing. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. Oh God!
Wow.
And he had Jack Riley and Pat McCormick do some writing for him. I mean, he wrote stuff for himself. I mean, he was serious about the stuff, like trumpet playing or singing. The comedy was a real thing, and he had writers, and then he would, I remember doing a session where we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Pat McCormick and Jack Riley are there for the Christmas record, and they had a whole script worked out. Pat McCormick, they had gotten together during the week, and so they did a whole thing on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And then it's not X-rated, but he does Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and where he plays a soul, then he starts talking, and it's this whole rant on drugs, all his drug jokes, which go on forever, which I could not release. So I had to go back. He had to go, would you just play a solo? And
do you have that somewhere, Tom, in
I
your
do
archives?
I do have it. I do. And it is absolutely wonderful.
Time to start sending some stuff around, Tom.
It sounds like time for another show.
Yeah.
You guys know this, or something LaFarge, who was who did
D'Artagnan Lafarge.
And then there's something about the guy did his operations. He was a doctor in Beverly Hills and did
Needleman, Dr. Carlos Needleman.
Did all his operations. Did all his operations in the back of a car by the light of a Ronson lighter, and he said, and then somebody asked me, he said, were they silent stars? He says, no, they all screamed.
They all screamed. Yeah, so many of Jack's routines were they weren't just jokes. They were like these extended things. That whole
Danny
thing
and
about
Lafarge.
that whole thing with D'Artagnan and Lafarge was like it would always start with him saying he was born in Jacksonville or wherever it was, Florida,
Yes.
and that the doctor came in and took one look at Jack and sewed his mother's knees together, and he said, my dad took one look at me and said, I need a Pepsi, and I never saw my dad again. But then he said, I finally tracked my dad down, and he was working as a contortionist at a carnival in Bakersfield, California. And I went to see him, and he saw me in the audience and died in his own arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God. D'Artagnan Lafarge.
D'Artagnan Lafarge died in his own arms. Yeah.
That was like I said. He'd start a joke, and the band knew, and you were in tears before he got like 4 words out. You know, it was great.
He had a whole thing about taking his dog. He had a dog that didn't have any legs, and he would take it for drag. But then he went to a Sunoco station, and they were giving out a free set of dog legs if you filled up your tank. So he got them. But then the legs that he got were really huge. So the dog was this teeny little dog walking around in these. It's like, I mean, you know, you're just like, how do you think of this?
Yeah.
Oh man.
This is like an oiled machine, also. Like I'm just, I'm just being a fly on the wall right now, and it
Can
just
you
goes
tell
on
that
and on and
that
on.
all 3 of these people spent a lot,
Josh
including Josh, they spent a lot of hours in a room listening to Jack Sheldon.
Yeah, I'm getting a real good impression from.
Yeah.
And in my case, I didn't have to be there because I was only singing one note, and I was only singing one song, and I wasn't getting paid. So the fact that I'm the one that loved him the most because all of this stuff that I know, you know, I bought my 2-drink minimum and sat there and tried to leave for the second set, but I just couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I look back and I go, the one thing for the years, I don't know, maybe 10 years or whatever, but the one thing we did, we were doing all these gigs for Stars or whatever Jack did, but I just know I was sitting here on the first tenor chair and Jack was sitting right here, and I just have that feeling and just that power when you sit next to somebody who's playing when he's in his prime and you're sitting next to it. You just feel this. It's overwhelming, and you can't get it out of your system, you know. And I swear, you know, every time I write a chart, there's Jack. I cannot not hear Jack. You know, he's in there somewhere, whether it's the way he plays or whatever, and I'm going to write something that's going to phrase like that or whatever. But man, those are just amazing years, and the bands were so good. Just to be just a cog in this machine, that was just so wonderful. God. Yeah.
Well, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but maybe listen to another tune with that band and.
Sure, whatever one.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember really loving the arrangement you did, Tom, on Some of These Days. Do you remember that thing? It was like a sort of a New Orleans thing, and it had a street march, like a run, run, run. Sal, was playing. I can't remember if that was just a feature for Sal.
That was just a feature for Sal. What I did was I saw this thing where like the Canadian brass did a thing with the mutes, and they played quarter notes so that like it sounded like a banjo.
Yeah.
And so so I did that, and it was kind of funny. Then Sal would play over the top. But yeah, but
of course, I forgot that wasn't a song that featured Jack, so never mind. But
I think that was the opening song of the last weekend of the show that we did the last weekend at Catalina's that he didn't end up making it to because he was sick. Yeah. But it was his birthday concert. We opened with that, I think.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah.
What should we play? Have You Met Miss Jones, Stars Fell in Alabama? How about you, or Come Fly With Me? I know it's a hard choice.
I don't know if you had that one off the album called Play It Again, Sam.
Is that the Juggernaut?
That was off my album. That's off my,
your album.
Do Come Fly With Me. That's a good one.
All right.
Or actually, Stars Fell from Alabama is a great
do that one?
Jack.
Stars Fell. Let's do Stars
My
Fell.
heart beat like a hammer.
Oh yeah. Sing it, Dave.
You can't
Dave.
have too much of that
Dave.
from Jack.
Yeah.
Here we go.
we lived our little drama. We kissed in a field of white, and stars fell on Alabama last night. I can't forget the glamour. Your eyes held a tender light, and stars fell on Alabama last night. I never planned in my imagination a situation so heavenly, a wonderland where no one else could enter, and at the center just you and me, dear. My heart beat like a hammer. My arms wound around you tight, and stars fell on Alabama last night. My heart beat like a hammer. My arms wound around you tight, and stars fell on Alabama last night. Stars fell on Alabama last
Well, that gave me chills down my spine.
You're never going to hear any singing better than that.
No.
You're just not.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
and
forget
you know-
about the trumpet playing, but it just the dynamics. He can hold his notes. He can be singing so quietly and hold the notes, but they're just spot on. And yet it's conversational. It's like Sinatra. His singing is like his speaking, but it's perfect musically.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the hardest things to do vocally or instrumentally is to maintain a swing melody at that tempo, and especially with lyrics. And I mean, Jack just makes it sound like, well, of course, you know, be just the way he stretches out this thing. It'd be so easy. You hear so many people do it so awkwardly, and he just kind of does it like, well, of course. You know?
Nothing.
What else? What else would you do? You know.
Yeah.
You-
Well, you guys, I'm considering myself like a fly on the wall with all of you guys, but this has been
Likewise.
incredible to hear all of these stories and you guys sharing stories and listening to all of that incredible, ridiculous music. Thank you, Tierney, for showing that My Fair Lady, because I can't get enough of that record. I listen to that stuff all the time. So thank you guys so much for sharing all of this music and for the wisdom that not only Jack shared with you guys, but your wisdom about the music, because this is just freaking inspiring to listen to all of the musical aspects of it and how to handle yourself as a professional musician too. It's like to me it's just a masterclass. I consider myself a very spoiled guy right now.
This will be the first of 10 Jack Sheldon shows, by the way.
Yeah.
We haven't even scratched the surface here.
Well, but
Yeah.
it's such a pleasure for me. I mean, to just be in that headspace of what it was like those wonderful, fantastic years when any night of the week almost, or 2 or 3 nights almost every week, I could look in the little jazz paper and see, I wonder if Jack's playing somewhere. And then I could just go and listen to the most beautiful trumpet playing and marvelous singing. And often they were like little holes, you know, with not great sound systems. And he didn't care. And just, wow, just the idea that I could do that I could just go and hear him on your average, you know, Thursday night. Yeah, that was, I knew that was not something to be thought of lightly.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. This just has been a great, like, for everybody who's listening and who's watching to get a great impression of who Jack was. We're having several people here who are so much enjoying it, and this is also our last show for a little while because both Josh and I are going on tour, and we're having traveling schedules, and this is number 43 that we had. So to do this one as like the last one for a while, it couldn't get any better than
Very
this.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
great.
has been absolutely great. Dave, thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute. We're so appreciative of you, man. It's really nice to have you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
So thank you, everybody, for watching.
you.
Our thanks to Dave Tull, to Tom Kubis, to Tierney Sutton for joining us on this great episode about the great, legendary Jack Sheldon. If you want to come out, also for people who are watching, we're going to play some Jack Sheldon stuff actually on Thursday at Vitello's with Mike Catone, Ricky Woodard, Chuck Berghofer, Josh, and I. We're playing at Vitello's with a complete West Coast repertoire with Melissa Morgan. Melissa Morgan singing also a few tunes, and besides stuff of Jack, Henry Mancini, Johnny Mandel, Gerald Wilson, you name it, all of the best stuff from the West Coast
great.
live at Vitello's. So that should be a lot of fun. So again, thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh, and for everybody who's out there, we're gonna see you hopefully soon.
All right, you guys.
Have a great
Hey.
night, everybody. Thanks
Great.
for watching, and thanks Tierney, Dave, and Tom. Just fabulous conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, amazing.
So
Hopefully,
fun.
we'll all make music again soon.
I hope
Yes,
so.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, off I go.
Okay. Bye.
All right.